You can lead.
Alright, so we're on to the sideboarding. I am changing quite a few cards. This is a particularly difficult matchup, especially post-board. The Esper players tend to have a few extra removal spells on top of cards like Thoughtseize and Negate, which are a real issue. Negate is secretly super powerful against this deck because your best threats are all Planeswalkers and Rakdos Return, and Negate hits all of them and feels awful every time they have it. So we're going to side in 3 Mistcutter Hydras. It's immune to Azorius Charms. That's about it in this deck. The blue decks, the straight blue-white decks usually struggle a little bit more with it. The mono-black removal cards in this are still going to be good against it, but it is just an X spell that can't be countered that will often get them at least once before they deal with it. We're going to bring in Abrupt Decays for Detention Spheres and Pithing Needles. Golgari Charm. Usually you would bring 2 in, but as my deck tech showed, I'm only currently playing 1 in the sideboard to test out some of the newer cards. It beats Supreme Verdict. It's another answer to Detention Sphere and Banishing Light, which is really important now that they have multiple extras of Detention Sphere on top of the original 4. We're bringing in Chandra Pyromaster. It's a good source of card advantage, and if they happen to play something that they want to block with, we can stop that from happening. Some of the decks play Blood Barons out of the sideboard and that, and preventing that from blocking the turn they play it, when it's usually the clutch turn to block and gain some life instead of dying, is huge. And then we get into some newer cards that we're bringing in. Soul of Innistrad's really interesting. It was pointed out to me. I sort of ignored it because a 6/6 with Death Touch didn't really interest me at all.
No.
But in this matchup, specifically, being able to return 3 huge threat creature cards out of your graveyard is actually something that's really attractive, especially when your opponent's going to be Supreme Verdict in your first round of threats. You can land the Soul of Innistrad, and even if they counter it, you can use its ability at instant speed from the graveyard, and for 5 mana at the end of turn, you can pick up 2 Storm Breaths and something, or just 3 threats that they then need to deal with a second time.
And you can just slow roll them one by one.
Exactly. Garrick Apex Predator. I'm not actually 100% sure if this card deserves a spot in the sideboard at all. It's really, really expensive, but its abilities are all really relevant. Being able to kill an Elspeth or a Jace is huge. He's a constant flow of large creatures, creatures that are bigger than Mutavaults, which is really important. His ability to neg 3 and kill a creature an Aetherling, even though it could just force the Aetherling to flicker out, which is huge. And hell, if we ever get to the ultimate, we probably win the game just like a Domri Emblem.
What does the ultimate actually do?
It gives you an emblem where every time I attack you, the creature gets +5/+5 and trample.
So your Elspeth becomes bigger than the Smokeless Dragon?
Yeah. What we're cutting is 3 Gorklan Rampages. As I said, they always have more removal in the sideboard to bring in for this matchup. And you never want to open yourself up for the 2-for-1 with the Blood Rush. It's really, really risky every time you go for it. So I'd rather just not have the option. The creature's really unimpressive on its own for 4 mana. On top of that, we're cutting the Mizium Mortars. The removal spells we're bringing in do more of what we want. There are no big creatures to kill. And if we really want to be killing a bunch of Elspeth tokens, we have Golgari Charm for that. Corsair of Crucifix. A lot of people have argued with me that it's worth keeping it in here for the card advantage. I 100% disagree. It is a 2/4 for 3 mana that does not put any pressure on your opponent. It doesn't force any Supreme Verdicts. And the life gain is negligible against the deck that's not going to do anything till it's hitting you for 30 with an Elspeth Emblem. And we shave 1 Pelucranos because we had to cut 1 more card, and it's the worst of the expensive threats.
Yeah, it is very efficient, but
it doesn't do much against your deck.
It's just a dork. It's a dead rich Goliath.
Yeah.
Yep. On our side of the table, we're bringing in just a bunch of really efficient spells. So like he said, his most powerful threats are Planeswalkers and Rakdos Return. So we bring in our Negate. If we had a second one, we would probably bring it in. We bring in 2 Thoughtseize as a catch-all. A lot of his threats are really slow, especially the important ones, like all the big creatures and Planeswalkers. So Thoughtseize lets us catch that before they even resolve. It's like a more proactive counter spell. Pithing Needle, just to name whatever Planeswalkers he has. If we can't counter the, say, Domri Rad, then we just drop that, name it, and because he has 4 in his deck, if he draws another one, it's just even more dead than it normally is. And we have 3 Doomblades just because we need more instant speed removal against their Storm Breath and Mistcutters. So we're bringing in 7 cards, and the 7 cards we're taking out is firstly the 2 Last Breaths and Azorius Charms. Last Breaths don't hit anything but Corsair, and if Corsar's on the table, it's along with Mana Docs, so we just Supreme Verdict that away. Azorius Charm also does nothing here. It can't hit their relevant creatures, so these are pretty much just dead removal spells. Aetherling is way too slow. It doesn't really do anything. All it does is finish them off, and it's a dead card whenever we draw it until we're at like turn 12, where I've got at least 10 mana in play. Our Elspeth is a much better finisher because it also keeps us alive. Jace is an interesting one. This was the last card I cut, but in this matchup, Jace only has one ability, and that's -2. And you're not going to be casting it on during the mid game because you have to leave Counter Magic mana open as well as mana for Doomblades for when they play their threats. So it's a card you only want to see later on. You want to cast it on, say, turn 6, play a Jace, minus it, and keep mana open for a Doomblade. And the last 2 cards we're cutting are Syncopate. Their deck will have a mana advantage in the early game with their mana dogs, so Syncopate is not that effective. If we were to be on the draw, we're probably keeping at least one of the Syncopates and take our Dissolve instead, so we can deal with a turn 3 Donry. Sorry, we can't do anything about turn 2 Donry. But on the play, actually, if they go turn 1 a Mystic, we will need the Syncopate for their turn 2 Donry. So it's probably correct to cut a Dissolve and keep in one Syncopate, so you have a Syncopate and a Negate against their Donry, whether it's on the draw or on the play when they have a turn 1 Mystic.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, we'll be back for Game 3 shortly.